Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to take you on a journey through a poem that explores some of life's most profound questions. George Herbert's Virtue is not just about the beauty of nature, it's about the deeper meaning of life, death, and what truly lasts. Through vivid imagery and powerful metaphors, Herbert challenges us to think about what we value most and what will remain when everything else fades away. As we dive into this poem, let's consider what it means to live a life of virtue. According to Herbert, it is the only thing that we can withstand the test of time. So let us explore this together and see what insights we discover. George Herbert was born in 1593 and he died at 1633. He pursued his education at University of Cambridge. Posts and careers are poet, public orator in the university, and also he is a priest. Fame and reputation, the talk of the countryside in the last 3 years of his life, preached and prayed and visited the poor. Notable work, his poems were published in the Temple. The book was published after his death by his friend in 1633. His style of making a poem is metaphysical poetry. So metaphysical poetry is a style of poetry from the early 17th century, known for its intellectual and philosophical nature. It often conceits unusual and extended metaphors to make surprising comparison between different things. Next, it would be the characteristics. So the characteristics of making his poem are his spiritual feelings is pure, fresh, and free. So this means that his poetry is known for its sincerity and simplicity when expressing spiritual emotions. Unlike many poets who might use elaborate or ornate language, Herbert's work reflects a direct, heartfelt connection with his faith. His poems convey a sense of purity and making them feel genuine and unforced. Second, we have his quiet is never the quiet of emotional poverty or laziness. Although Herbert's poetry often has a calm and contemplative tone, instead of being dull or indifferent, his quietness reflects a deep spiritual themes. This quiet is full of insights and thoughtful reflection, demonstrating an intense, active engagement with his faith and inner life. Third, we have his poems have been characterized by a deep religious devotion. So Herbert's poetry is marked by a profound commitment to Christian faith and spirituality. His works are often devotional, focusing on themes of divine love, grace, and human soul's relationship with God. This strong religious devotion permeates his poetry, making it not just literary, but also a form of prayer and worship. Next, we have John Donne and George Herbert similarities. So the first similarities that they have is they live in the same time. So John Donne from 1572 to 1631 and George Herbert from 1593 to 1633 were contemporaries living in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. This period was marked by significant religious, social, and political change in England, which influenced their work. Both poets were part of the English Renaissance and contributed to the metaphysical poetry movement. Second, we have John Donne and George Herbert are the same in using metaphysics. So, as a metaphysical poet, Donne and Herbert use intellectual and philosophical concepts to explore complex themes such as love, faith, and existence. Their poetry often delves into abstract ideas and theological discussions. making use of logical reasoning and reflecting on the nature or reality and the divine. Now, we will talk about their differences. So first, they have Donne may be described as the poet of religious of doubt, strain, or anxiety. So John Donne's poetry often reflects a sense of inner conflict and spiritual struggle. His religious poem frequently explores theme of doubt, anxiety, and the tension between faith and reason. It captures the complexity of his spiritual journey, marked by questioning and searching for a divine truth. While Herbert is a poet of religious, of faith, submission, and acceptance. In contrast to John Donne's, George Herbert's poetry is characterized by a serene faith and acceptance of God's will. Herbert often writes about peace and comfort that come from submitting to divine authority and embracing God's love. So his poems reflect a calm, unwavering devotion and trust in God's plan. Third, John Donne expresses his meaning through intellectual terms and answers them in the same way, while Herbert uses emotion to convey the meaning. So, his poetry is highly intellectual and often engages with complex philosophical and theological ideas. He uses logic and argumentation to explore religious and existential questions. Herbert, on the other hand, uses more emotional and heartfelt expression to convey his spiritual experience, focusing on feeling of love, gratitude, and humility in his relationship with God. The fourth differences that they have is Herbert draws his metaphors from everyday experience, simple imagery, but Donne uses complex imagery. So Herbert's metaphors are often drawn from simple everyday experience and objects, making his imagery more accessible and relatable. He uses these common items to convey profound spiritual insight. However, John Donne is known for his complex and intricate imagery, often drawing from science and philosophy to create elaborate metaphysical conceit that challenge the reader to think deeply. These differences tells us that they have a unique approaches. John Donne and George Herbert take to explore religious themes in their poetry, reflecting their distinct poetic style and spiritual perspectives. This time, I will read the poem and later on I will explain the lines that George Herbert used in this poem. So this poem titled Virtue. Sweet day, so cool, so calm, so bright, the bridal of the earth and sky. The dew shall whip thy fall tonight, for thou must die. Sweet rose whose hue, angry and brave, bids the rash gazer wipe his eye. The root is ever in its grave, and thou must die. Sweet spring full of sweet days and roses, a box where sweet compacted lie. My music shows ye have your closes, and all must die. Only a sweet virtuous soul like seasoned timber never gives, but through the whole world turn to coal, then chiefly lives. This time I will explain each stanza of the poem. So, in the first stanza we have sweet day, so cool, so calm, so bright, the bridal of the earth and sky. So this means that the lines describe the peaceful and beautiful nature of the day, symbolizing the union between the earth and sky. The inevitable reality of its passing, this imagery is rich and precise. Herbert uses this beautiful day as a metaphor for virtue, suggesting that even the most virtuous things are vulnerable to the passage of time and death. Second stanza. Sweet rose whose hue, angry and brave, bids the rash gazer wipe his eye. The line refers to the beauty of a rose that can cause onlookers to shed tears due to its fleeting nature. So the rose, with its bold color and commanding presence, serves as a symbol of virtue that demands deeper contemplation and appreciation, and this reminds the readers about the beauty and death. Third stanza. Sweet spring, full of sweet days and roses, a box where sweet compacted lie. My music shows ye have your closes, and all must die. So this stanza continues to explore the theme of morality. He compares the beauty and fleeting nature of springtime to the virtue, that even the most beautiful and virtuous things must eventually end. The imagery of music shows and box hinting at the inner beauty and harmony of virtue that will ultimately fade away. The last stanza, we have only a sweet and virtuous soul like seasoned timber never gives, but through the whole world turn to cold, then chiefly leaves. So the final stanza provides a powerful message of hope. It suggests that virtue is like a tree that can withstand the harsh realities of life and emerge even stronger. Overall, the message of the poem is all about how we cherish our time to someone we love, and this poem is essentially a reminder that all the things that we have right now will nothing last forever. Like in the poem, the beautiful day, the vibrant rose, even the joyous season of spring, they all eventually fade away. It's a powerful message about appreciating what we have while we have it. And also, it is a reminder that true happiness and fulfillment come from cultivating virtue in our own lives, regardless of the challenges we face. George Herbert's virtue remind us also that while the world around us is constantly changing, true virtue remains an enduring source of strength and resilience. Question. Which stanza stands out the most to you and why? How does it contribute to the overall message of the poem?